This is Earth Radio. And now here's human music.
And there he is. Go man go. Getting ready to rock and roll. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Speedy's Garage YouTube channel. We got one more little change we're gonna make to Go Man Go here before we make our track outing, so stay tuned. I'm gonna show you what we got. But first I'm gonna tell you something that I have learned as part of the tuning process on this car. When I originally wrote the tune for Go Man Go and the new Red Eye engine, it was during the summer. So here in Middle Tennessee, it was 93-ish, let's say, 93, 94 degrees out. It was very humid, I would say between 75 and 85% humidity. So in my mind, that was worst case scenario for the pump gas. I wanted to do it in what I thought would be difficult conditions. I'd make a few wide open throttle pulls. I'd make sure I had the timing table set right, make sure I had the fueling nice and good so that we keep things nice and safe, especially for that pump gas. And then there's this modifier in the tune called an IAT modifier, and it's intake air temperature. And as the intake air temperature goes up, it starts to take a little bit of timing out to keep the engine nice and happy. I made sure I had that set up and it was doing exactly what I wanted it to do. I had a very nice, safe tune in the car, and the log showed 0 short-term knock retard, which is what I wanted. I actually made 2 or 3 wide open throttle pulls just to make sure as that intake air temperature went up, the timing would drop down a little bit. Never saw a hint of short-term knock retard in my logs, and I assumed I was good to go. So when the weather started to cool off, I came back. I wanted to now make some passes in cooler air just to make sure. The way the tables are set up, the air charge is what it's measuring. So a lot of people think about boost, but really you need to think of it in terms of air charge. And that's what Mike kept trying to kind of drill into my head. He was like, I don't even know how much, Mike would say for his shop car, he didn't even know how much boost his car made. And this is Mike at OST Dyno. Those that haven't been following along, Mike from OST Dyno is the one that actually trained me on how to tune this thing. So I've worked with him for many, many years. He's an excellent tuner, was very generous enough to share some of that knowledge with me, and I'm now able to tune my own car, which is awesome with HP Tuner software. So now that you're caught up on that, back to what I was saying, the timing table is measured in air charge, and so I believe that is how much air molecules or how much air is actually flowing through the motor. And so it's not really referencing how much boost is going into the motor. It's more about how much air is flowing through it. And so the hotter temperatures you'd be at one area, and the colder temperatures you can get into another area, and the timing changes based on where you are in that table. So what I wanted to do is go in and run a data log or two in cold temperatures where the IAT modifier wasn't kicking in as much or at all, and then double check to make sure that we were still good to go in terms of short-term knock retard and fueling. And what I found out was actually pretty surprising. So I hop in Go Man Go, I run up the local gas station that I typically use, and I filled the car up with some 93 octane to about a half a tank. And I went out to my test track where I always do my testing and got the data logger set up, and I went and made a pull. I pulled over, checked the data log, and surprisingly, I had a sprinkle of short-term knock retard in a couple of places. So I kind of took a break right there. I pulled up the log from the summertime when I was dialing the tune in and compared them. And boost was almost exactly the same. The timing was about the same. The air charge was very close. It was a little bit more now because the air had cooled off, but not enough that I thought it would make a difference. But I was getting about a degree, maybe 1.5 degrees of knock retard in a couple of spots. And I hadn't seen that at all during the summer when it was super hot out. So I decided to drive the car around and a couple of days and got that fuel out of it, thought maybe I got a bad tank of fuel. I stopped at another gas station, put 93 in the tank, same brand, put 93 in the tank, and if you carry it Shell, that's usually what I use around here. That's about the best I can find, at least in this area. It's one of the top tier gasolines. Matter of fact, if you know of a better gasoline in Middle Tennessee or something I should try to find, leave me a comment below and I'll try it. I'm really curious because in the end, what I ended up doing is put that second half tank of gas in, went out to my test track again, made another couple of pulls, and I still had the same little sprinkle of short-term knock retard in just a couple of places that I hadn't seen over the summer. And so what I did is I took 1 degree of timing out of the tune in those spots. It was 2 spots. I think it was like, trying to remember, I think it was around 4,100 RPM and I think again about 6,300 RPM. And it wasn't enough for me to think, oh no, I'm gonna hurt the motor or anything. The knock sensors were doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and they were just taking out a little bit of timing. But it was very interesting to me that on a cool day, it was like 60, 61 degrees, with the same fuel or the same brand and same 93 octane fuel in the car, I was now starting to see some knock retard where I hadn't seen it over the summertime. Again, boost was almost the same, maybe a half a pound difference, but not enough that I don't think that would matter. And air charge was almost the same, maybe a 10% difference either way. And I tried to find logs that were very, very similar. And I even went back to where one day I was out goofing off, and it was you know, a 70-degree day, so a little bit cooler than the 90s where I had originally tuned the car, but cooler than it had been. And put same Shell 93 in the car, made a pull, and the data logs were very, very close in terms of boost and air charge and all of that stuff, timing and everything, fueling, all of it. You know, I was very meticulous about checking it all, and I'm kind of going over this over and over and over so that people don't, you know, leave a bunch of comments, oh, there had to been something different, or had to been this, had to been that. I'm going to tell you what I think it is in the end, and I did some research and I'm pretty sure it's right. At least in my area, the winter fuel, I think they mix it with a different base or additive or whatever you want to call it, but the chemistry of the fuel changes in the wintertime from what I've been reading, and it's to make the cars easier to start when it's cold. I guess they put different additives in it in the summertime because they're easier to start when it's warm out than it is when it's cold out, and I think those additives are more volatile, and so it makes the fuel more likely to knock. And so again, I wasn't getting enough that it was going to hurt anything, but in my logs, me personally, I don't like to see any more than a half a degree in a spot or two. And here I was seeing a degree, maybe a degree and a half in a spot or two, and I didn't like that. So I went back in, I took 1 degree out in those two places, reran my logs, and now it's clean. I get maybe a little sprinkle of a half in one spot for a split second, but that's it, and I'm okay with that. So I mentioned all this to tell you, if you're interested in all this tuning and stuff and you start getting into it, you really need to be meticulous about how you test the car, and test it in the summertime on the summertime fuel, and then test it again in the wintertime on the wintertime fuel, because in my case there was an obvious difference, and it wasn't one that I expected. I honestly thought in the cold air that it would be better, and in my situation it wasn't. So it's only a degree different, not a big deal. I think 1 degree, if you look at some of the online information, and I'm not going to go to a dyno and find out, but 1 degree of timing is worth about 11 horsepower, give or take. And I literally took out 1 degree and solved all of my problems. So now my logs are clean, everything is good to go. Now we're going to get on to what we're going to change on the car today. All right, here's our box. Let's see what we got. Here's a hint. That's cool, I got a demon on their paperwork. Another hint. A decal. So there is what we have. We have an Archangel lithium battery. It's weird how light it is. Like, you expect it to be heavier just because it's so big. So now we're just going to swap that out. I'm curious how much the stock one weighs compared to this guy. And when I make small changes like this to the car, I guess the bottom line is I want it to be as light as I can make it. I mean, it's already a Hellcat, so it's a pretty heavy car. Anyway, you guys have seen me weigh it at the track before. And I think in race trim, if I'm doing it from memory, 4320, I think, with me in it, and I weigh about 180 pounds. So it's a pretty heavy car. Anything I can do to lighten it, especially when I'm taking it to the track, I want to do. I don't understand when I see folks comment like, I ran the car full weight. I don't really see the point in that. When I'm at the track, I'm going for maximum performance, and if I can keep from leaning on the car, and I can take away, don't have to run that extra, degree or two of timing and put it right there on the edge, and I take my passenger seat out and I can run the same time as the person who might have to take their tune right at the edge, that's what I'm going to do. I want it to be as safe as it can be and as light as it can be, and the lighter you can make a car, the less wear and tear and stress on the differential and the axles and the drive shaft and all that stuff you're going to get at the same time. I gotta imagine that's probably 22 pounds, maybe 25, and I haven't weighed it yet. I bet I can't pick the factory one up with one hand like that. So we're going to get it swapped over now and find out. We're gonna take our chairs and our bag out. Okay, that's what we're working with. This should be a pretty straightforward swap. I'm gonna confirm, make sure the positive and negative posts are on the same side, but I suspect they are. The only thing you really need to be aware of is that bracket down there. Some people say you have to trim that. Some people say you don't. Some people say you just need a longer bolt. So some people say they didn't have to do anything. It just went right in. So I don't know what the deal is. Maybe those brackets are different per car or something, or they just grab one out of a parts bin. We're gonna hope we don't have to do anything. And yep, positive and negative lines up. So we're good to go there. And there's the part number I have, if you're curious. If yours has this red cover over the positive terminal, go ahead and pop that off. This one has a belt that's holding the battery down, so I'm gonna loosen that up. Next, I'm gonna remove the negative battery post. You always wanna do negative first when you're working with a battery. And that's a 10mm bolt. There we go. Try to set that out of the way. Now we're going to go after the positive. It's also 10mm. Be careful working around your positive. You don't want to let your wrench scratch the paint and ground or something, because then you'll get a arc right there. So be careful of that. There's our positive out of the way. Now I think, oh, we got our bracket down there. Now we got to take that bracket loose and the battery will come out. I'm gonna use a long extension, and it's also a 10mm bolt. And there's our bracket, there's the bolt. Now the battery should lift out. And finally, there's a vent tube back on the back corner of the battery. That'll have to come out. Now, let's see if it'll come out. Jeez. Yeah, it is heavy. Ugh. All right, I'm gonna find out how much this thing weighs. 44 pounds. Knew it was heavy. Okay, so the Archangel battery, wow, way lighter. 16.5 pounds, wow. That's a huge difference. Okay, so right there, we shaved like 28 pounds. All right, got that in. I'm gonna check our bracket, let's see how it looks. It's resting right on the lip like it's supposed to, but it is, the lip's a little bit taller. So I don't know if the stock bolt's gonna work. I may have to get a longer one. Nope, I think the stock bolt actually, yep, that's gonna work just fine. So on mine, I didn't have to do anything. The bracket worked, the bolt works, everything's good to go. And if your belt was kind of weird around the positive strap like mine was, it actually disconnects from a hook on the far end, and then you can route it like you want it. So I'm gonna come make it a little bit cleaner. Okay, we've got the bracket in place, we've got the belt in place, everything's nice and secure. Now I'm gonna connect the positive terminal first. And it should be, yeah, it's 10mm. Next, I'm going to hook up the negative terminal. Be careful connecting your negative. That's when you can get some fireworks if you're not careful. Just do it deliberately and quickly. And I am going to go ahead and put this plastic cap over the positive terminal, since it was on there before. All right, there we go. Everything's put back in, and we just saved ourselves almost 28 pounds. Okay, so with that, we're gonna do a test fire of it real quick. And that one has been sitting in a box for a while. I've had it for a while and just now got around to installing it. So this will kind of be a test of how long it's gonna hold a charge. We'll see. Wow, I'd say that fired faster than the factory battery did. Quite a bit faster, actually. All right, and that had been sitting, like I said, in a box for probably a month. So I'm back after the test drive and I can see absolutely no downsides. I tried a couple of starts and I guarantee you it's firing faster than it ever did with the factory battery installed. So we shaved 28 pounds off the car. We've got a faster firing battery, and I don't have to worry about it draining. I literally left that Archangel battery in the box for about a month before I installed it, so it had just been sitting in the shop and it hadn't had any issues going flat or anything like that. I believe someone, I think it was B Mason maybe on his channel, he actually tested how long it took the factory battery to go into low voltage mode using a taser and the cool down function versus the Archangel, and the Archangel went way longer. Now he was using the low power or low fan speed mode on both, but it was a long time on the Archangel battery. So I'll be going to the track here soon. I will be using the cool down feature, so we'll find out for sure, but for now I'm going to call that good. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedys_garage, as well as our website, www.speedysgarage.net. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We're headed out to the track here soon, and hopefully I will see you out there.